going? Yay, happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How are y'all doing? Let me make sure this is up in my group. We have got a fun conversation and we haven't done this in a while, but I have Instagram live with us as well. Let me actually move this camera over a little bit because I thought it'd be fun. I've been playing on Instagram as well, and I thought it'd be fun to have the combo to have both y'all here while we're digging into this conversation. We're going to be talking some juicy stuff. Let me just make sure we are live in the group while I'm pulling this up to make sure that this is actually working so I can see your comments. What I said to Instagram and what I will tell you all is we always do a giveaway because I'm so grateful when you join me for these conversations, and it's also way more fun that we are. Way more fun for me to get to chat with you. So if you leave a comment, if you leave an emoji, while we're live, you will be entered to win our giveaway. And our giveaway today is, what are we giving away? We are giving away a copy of my workshop, Leverage Your Unique Millionaire Money Blueprint. It is a workshop that walks you through your relationship with money, how to tap into those and get clear on and clear those unhealthy relationships that keep you stuck undercharging, under earning, or overspending, and to leverage the opportunities for you to build wealth. So leave me a comment, you'll be entered to win that. Now let's talk about our conversation today. I've got a good one. We're going to talk about why my coaching approach is wrong and why it might still work for you and why it works for my clients to get them monetary results. And I hope that this is what I was telling Instagram. I hope this will be permission giving for some of you who are coaches for your approach. I also hope this will help you just have a different way to think about the support you're investing in. And I also want to share my approach for and philosophy around coaching and business, and I hope this will give you some different insights, because I think sometimes we get in our heads what is supposed to be right and certain things that are taught that maybe make sense in certain industries but maybe not for us when we're in business and making money. So I want to dig into all of that today. And also a reminder, I'll share this again at the end, but I do have a one-on-one coaching spot opening up in September, as well as some intensives we're opening up over the fall. We usually do open up some coaching intensives. I don't always have one-on-one spots opening up because my clients renew and work with me long term, and or people just book them kind of ahead of time. But I'm really looking for the right fit client for this spot. So as we're chatting through this, if you're listening to this and you're like, maybe that's me, I'll make sure I leave a link here for a consultation. But we are also opening up some limited free coaching sessions, 100K CEO mindset and strategy sessions. Instagram, this is for you as well. You can grab those through either link through my bio and Facebook. I will make sure, besties and bosses, I'll make sure I drop that link below. So whether you want to have a consultation or it would feel better to experience my coaching on a session, I will drop a link for those. We are opening up a few of those limited calls for you. And Instagram, I apologize. It's saying my connection is slow here, so hopefully you won't lose me too much, but let's dig into the good stuff. So, why is my coaching philosophy wrong, or my approach wrong, and why might it still be so right and make you money? And let's talk about where this conversation is even coming from. I've got so much I want to say here. So the reason for this conversation and what prompted this is 5 years ago, before I got fully booked, before I was making multi-six figures, before I had the confidence I do now, both in myself as a coach, but also just seeing, wow, we get such great results in this business, both myself and my clients. Like I said at the beginning to Instagram, I, for some marketing for a masterclass we actually have next month, was doing some of the math on the back end, and we've had 28 clients make 10K cash months or more that I've worked with. 15 of my clients have made their first six figures, so have not come to me making that money, been in early stages of business and made their first six figures. Many more have made multi-six figures, and then we've had 3 clients either make or have been on track. I have one on track this year for $1 million plus. So 2 of my clients have been from early stages of business and scaled to $1 million, and then 1 is on track this year. And I think given that I work one-on-one with clients, and at any given time I have 20, max 25 clients, but usually somewhere in between. My sweet spot's around 22, 23 clients at a given time, and that many of my clients renew and work with me for years and years and years. I have clients who've worked with me for 3 and 4 years, meaning there's not a lot of turnover. Those are some pretty, I think, crazy stats and percentages in terms of the percentage of clients that are getting these really great results. And it's my clients, it's not me. However, I do think there are some of the things based on the way I'm working with clients and supporting them and holding them to those results that are maybe different than what other coaches or other philosophies or teachings or programs are doing. And that's what I want to dig into today. Not as a way to say, oh my gosh, to have this swing the other way where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so right, because I don't think that is the case at all, but more just to give some context and to nuance, even to as to what's allowing for these results to happen. Because I think we hear so much in the online space about people making 10K months or 6 figures or 7 figures, and we don't always have the context and the nuance for what's helping them to create and sustain those results. And what's interesting is 5 years ago, where I was starting this off, I had one of my clients tell me they've never worked with a coach like me before, and my approach is really different. And it was really interesting to me because I was like, full transparency, at the time I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't have the confidence I do now, and I thought, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm weird, or maybe I'm not doing things good enough. And what I've seen since, because I've had so many clients reflect this to me at this stage and point, and so many clients reflect to me that they've never met someone who thinks about business the way I do or who coaches the way I do. And so many clients renew for that reason and get these results. And that same client that mentioned that to me is now renewed a couple times, and I now see, oh my gosh, I get it. We have such a great chemistry, and this is what's working and the kind of support that works. I now see what I honestly think as this is just what coaching is, and my approach and philosophy to coaching in terms of both what I learned, because I took a year-long coaching training program, and I worked with 100 clients for free and 3 clients in a full-length program for free before charging for coaching. So this is based on my philosophy for coaching, but also my philosophy around business. I just, sometimes you can't see your own magic, or you can't see what's true because it's just so what your truth is in second nature. Until I had a lot of people reflect this to me, I didn't even think I was doing something different. But when I had some of these things reflected to me, I also realized, oh, this is what a lot of people think is wrong, and I actually think it's what is, in air quotes, right. It might not be right for everyone, but what is right for my clients and really supports them. They are the ones getting their own results. And I think that's part of what we'll talk about today. But I think this slightly different philosophy and approach is what is supporting them to have the container that allows for those results. And hey, on just seeing a couple nice faces on Instagram. Nice to have you all here. As I'm going through this, by the way, please feel free to share your questions, thoughts, reflections, and don't forget, if you leave me a comment, you will be entered for our giveaway. So let's dig into all of this, and I'm going to just keep saying this and keep giving these disclaimers, but they feel really important to say, which is I am by no means here to be the coaching police and to say, now these are the things you should do as a coach or that you should want in a coach. However, I do want to be a voice for maybe something different that I personally think is what coaching is all about, but that I had reflected to me that is so different and that I think in other spaces might be considered wrong, just to open the window of the different approaches and what might be really right for you, either as a coach or as a client receiving coaching. So again, take what works for you, leave the rest. I am not the coaching police. I am not right by any means. I might not be right for you. My approach might not be right for you as a coach, but just see and listen and tune in for what could be true and right for you here. Okay. Okay, let me pull up my notes here because I know there's a lot of things here that I wanted to speak to. So let me actually start with my coaching philosophy. And I honestly think this is just what is true in coaching. But again, this is my coaching and business philosophy and things that I've had reflected to me that are not necessarily what people have experienced elsewhere. So I think if it were me and I was looking for a coach as well, this is something I would really be craving. But one of the things I really look for, and one of the things I really think about is I want to work with clients who are, yes, a right fit, but right fit for me doesn't necessarily mean like they never have a problem, or they're never triggered, or they're never upset, or they're never mad at me, or they agree with everything I say, or they do everything I say. In fact, I know that as a coach, part of what I'm supporting clients with are the things that they don't want to do, and we might have really different opinions, and that they might get mad at me and they might get triggered in the container. Not that I'm trying to trigger clients, but that's just a normal thing in a coaching container. So when I'm thinking about right fit clients, I'm thinking about aligned values, but I'm really thinking about who's someone that I believe I can support and also who's someone that I sincerely believe when I look at them, like I'm like, I believe in you. Even if you don't believe in yourself, I believe you're capable. I know you can create what you want, and I'm able to hold you to that higher standard, even if at this moment you are not. But that's really what I think about with right fit. And then of course we need to have some alignment in terms of those values. But then I just need to believe that I'm the right match in terms of the challenges you have and what you want, that I believe I can support you with that. And I say that because again, I think sometimes we hear and I think we think that a really great coaching match is going to be someone who just yeses you all the time, does everything you say, agrees with you all the time. And I just don't think that's it at all. Plenty of my clients don't agree with me on, and I'm so willing to be wrong as a coach. And I think that's actually an important distinction to say. And so I think there are spaces in which, as the coach, you're supposed to like always be right and like be on a pedestal. I don't know where these spaces are, but really I see, and my philosophy with coaching is I don't need to be right. I don't want to be right. I'm not here to be I'm coaching my clients to be empowered CEOs and to step into their CEO role to run their business. I don't want to be the boss of their business. I don't want to be the CEO of their business. I don't want to be the one who's right. That feels like a very codependent, unhealthy coaching client relationship, in my opinion. I want to believe that I can support them to come to their answers, to learn how to think like a CEO, to understand their business, to know how to run their business like a business, to honestly be able to push back when they don't agree with me. Sometimes I will intentionally be wrong to also see what response that might elicit from a client. But I really also want to work with clients that I see and believe are capable, and that I'm able to hold to that higher standard. I do also hold my clients to a really high standard and expect them to rise to the occasion. And I do expect a lot from my clients. And I say that because I think we don't always say that in this space, but I do expect, I expect if my clients are investing in coaching that they're going to show up and be coachable. I don't expect that they're always going to be positive. I don't expect they're not going to have fears. I don't expect them to not have wobbles. I don't expect them to get results on a certain timeline, but I do expect them and hold them to a high standard and expect them to rise and to hold themselves to a high standard, to show up for coaching, to show up for their business, because I can't do that for them. And so I think that's maybe important to speak to, and I do think that is something we don't always speak to. But I know my clients are smart, and I know they're capable, and that is something I believe something my coach said to me once when I started working with her over we're going on 5.5+ years. We've been working for a hot second together. But she said something along the lines of, you can borrow my belief until you have your own. I also don't believe that my clients fully have to believe in themselves to get results. I think there's some noise out there where you need to fully believe in yourself to be able to invest in coaching or to run your business. And the truth is, I think part of my job is to support my clients to be able to believe in themselves. And I so appreciated when my coach said that to me. And I really believe part of my role is to have that higher standard and to be able to also believe in my clients when they can't believe in themselves, so they can borrow that belief from me, or so that I can support them to have that belief. I don't believe that I can have the full belief for them and that they are never going to have them themselves, but I do think that is some of my role as a coach. So hopefully that makes sense there. And let me go again, if you have questions, if you want me to give any more reflections or nuance here. The other thing in terms of coaching and what my philosophy and some of my approach here, and the way I think about this with business coaching in particular, that I think some people might say is wrong, that I honestly just think is what coaching, like this is what coaching is. But I think in some ways we've moved so far away from what coaching is in our space and our expectations with that, and I think it's helpful to speak to. I don't believe in business coaching and coaching clients where we come in and we have on call 1, we focus on this, on call 2, we focus on this, and on call 3, we've got a whole roadmap for your business planned out, and this is what you're going to do to create results in your business. I honestly think if that were my approach, I don't think we'd have the client results given the number of clients I have at any given time that I've worked with, I don't think 28 clients would have reached 10K months, because I just don't believe fundamentally that's how business works. And I think this is helpful maybe to hear, maybe what I do wrong as a coach and why someone might not want to work with me, but I think is so right for the right type of person. I really believe so much of coaching is understanding what the bigger vision for someone is and what the goal we're working towards is, and of course creating a plan towards that. And of course, sometimes as a coach, I also believe in putting my mentorship hat on, which I think traditional coaching doesn't do, right? Traditional coaching is just asking questions and like, how do you feel? Or I don't know, just using tools. And I do believe as a business coach, part of my job is to both wear the business coach hat and the mentorship hat. And sometimes I will give thoughts and I will give perspectives, but I always want to empower the client in front of me to ultimately come to what they want and what they believe is true for the next step, because no one's going to know someone's business better than them. But I really believe, and I think this is just maybe, I don't know how this will land for everyone else, but I believe business itself is very, very simple. I think I think this could be frustrating to hear, because I know when I was personally on my way to make my first 10K months in business, I think if someone had told me that that was simple, I would have misheard that as easy, and I probably would have been annoyed. And so I think it can feel easy. I think it can feel easeful, but I by no means trying to diminish that the gap period. And I do think reaching your first 10K month or your first 6-figure year is the hardest, right? It takes the most fuel to take off, not to coast. And I do think for so many reasons, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much, but because there's so much we have to put in place. There's so many learning curves. There's so much, if you've never marketed before, if you don't know your messaging, if you don't have an audience at all, if you don't know how to sell, if your mindset is not supporting you, there's so many things that have to be put in place to reach those results. And it's also, business is very simple, and making money in business gets to be very simple. And so that is what I keep returning my clients to. So I'm so not here to overcomplicate business for my clients. And I'm so not here to co-sign complication. And I also know that while business is really simple, there's a lot of stuff we are not going to have clarity on and that we're not going to know in advance. And I think one of the biggest things that holds entrepreneurs back from making their first 10K month, from having their first 6-figure year, is wanting to know all the answers in advance, wanting to have a perfect plan, hearing that business is simple. And it's like, cool, what are the 3 steps to making money? So that you don't have to face rejection, so that you don't have to have a hurdle, so that you don't have to have challenge, so that you don't have to be uncomfortable. And my business philosophy and my coaching philosophy is that, yes, business is super simple, and yes, we can craft together a strategy that works for you. And I'm so here for the practical strategy and the science side of business and making money 1,000%. And sometimes the way we figure out what's right for you and what works for you in your business is going out and taking some messy action, going out and taking action before you know what's right and true for you, being willing to go out and fail, being willing to go out and run a rejection, being willing to go out and collect some no's, being willing to go out and to do something that we're like, isn't that interesting, that didn't work the way we thought it was going to work. And to remember that so much of business is a test. And I say that because I think that is a place where it's like someone might say I'm doing business wrong or coaching wrong. And I think because there is a lot of marketing and there is a crave for it's like, no, I want the exact 3 steps I take to make this kind of money. And I think that is where sometimes we unintentionally give our power away in the online space, to programs, to people we put on a pedestal, to the Instagram scroll we're following. I think there is, whether we realize it or not, this way in which we give power away, thinking someone else has the answers and the exact steps. And yes, I can know what has worked for other clients and like general business principles and foundational principles, and there's no way for me to know what is true for a client until we start putting things into action. And I think, again, that could be wrong to some people who really just want to plug and play formula, some people who just do want to give their power away essentially to a program that's just laying out the exact steps to take. Whereas for some people, this is going to feel really right. I think this is what coaching is all about. It's all about that collaborative creation where it's like we're figuring this out together. And I am not the guru. I am not putting myself on a pedestal. I don't know all the answers in your business. I do have experience, right? I have 7.5 years coaching experience. Well, no, I have 8.5 or 9 years coaching experience. I have 7.5 business experience. I have decades of experience in marketing and sales. I have the experience of building my own multi-six figure and help business and helping 15 clients to six figures, right? I have all of that experience I can bring to the table and say, hey, here's what's worked for other clients. Here's what I know to be true about business. But I don't know you and your business. I'm not the CEO of you and your business. And what I can tell you is for 28 clients who hit 10K months, they didn't all do it the same way. Many of them used the similar business, right? We use similar foundational business principles. But what worked for one person isn't necessarily what worked for another person in their business, which is what I think coaching is all about. But I say that because I think this is where some people could think that's wrong, and other people might be like, oh, that is literally what I'm craving. And I think is maybe just helpful to speak to in terms of what I see and from my experience, right, in terms of what creates results. If I think about the calls I've had today and yesterday, just this week, and I think about the clients I've supported, I am the same coach. And I have literally said things to different clients. I've said one thing to one client and given the complete opposite suggestion or perspective or reflection to another client. And that's just in 2 days, because they're very different business owners with very different businesses and strategies and challenges that are popping up for them. The other thing in terms of, and this is getting long, so I will, so I want to share to speak to some of the other pieces here in terms of what I do in air quotes wrong in terms of coaching approach. But this is just with my coaching and business philosophy. The other thing that feels really important to speak to is I'm really, really big as a coach on I'm going to meet you where you're at, and I always want to identify and close the right gap in your business. We did a whole live stream on this. If you want to go back, it was either last week or it was a couple weeks ago, I think. And the reason I reflect that and why I think that could be considered wrong is that's why I can't tell you if we work together for 6 months that on session 3, we're going to be talking offer suite, or then on session 1, we're going to be talking messaging, or then on session 4, we're going to be talking about how to navigate sales objections. These are all things I can support you with. But if on session 3, we're supposed to, because the next step in your business plan is to talk about your offer suite or your marketing strategy. If you come to a call and you are spun out about taking action to get visible, or you've just had a fight with your spouse and it is jacking up your nervous system, or you have gotten super triggered by someone you've seen online who's talking about their money wins, it's really tough for us to then say, well, let's just forget about what's going on with you as a human and let's just dive into the next step of your strategy and your process. I'm the type of coach, and what some people might say is wrong because it's not going by the step-by-step thing your business needs next, but might be really right for you. I'm always going to be there to be like, who's the human in front of me? What's coming up for you? What do you want big picture? Yes, what's the right gap to close and the next step that you specifically need that we're either going to test or run at, but also what's coming up for you and having you get in your own way or preventing you from moving forward in your business. And a lot of times that is going to be not the next linear step in the business plan, and maybe it is looking at mindset, or maybe it is looking at something outside of the business. And so I think this is one of those things that could be considered wrong that I see as really right, and why I think my clients get the kind of results that don't make sense. When I look at, so we've had 3 clients scale to $1 million. When I look at what we're talking about on calls, it's not like every call we're sitting here looking at what's the next action step they need to take. So often I'm looking at who's the human in front of me, what is going on for this human who's having a human experience, as well as what do they need to be able to work through so they can get to neutral to show up as a CEO to run their business, serving other humans having a human experience. And that's a big part of my coaching philosophy, but also my business philosophy. Yes, I believe in owning your role as a CEO and running your business like a business, which for me really means being able to take the personal out of business and get to neutral, not being high vibe all the time. I think that's a rant for another live stream. I think that is a bit bypassy and just not even realistic, but being able to get to neutral and understand what your business needs from you as opposed to what you personally need to be able to show up to run your business. And a big shout out to my coach, Lacey Seitz, because she taught me so much of that, right? I do believe that is what your business needs to make 10K, 20K, 100K months. And I want to couple that with, yes, how do we get you to neutral to be the CEO, to run your business like a business, but also remember there's a human who has to step into that CEO role, and that human might have a whole bunch of personal stuff we need to navigate, unpack, and work through so you can get to neutral. And you're a human serving other humans who might not be at neutral, who have a whole bunch of stuff that they might be bringing into your container, right? That they might be bringing in terms of their fears, their insecurities, their money stuff, their whatever drama's coming up. So how can we, yes, have you be in that CEO role, be that neutral human running the business, but how can we also support you as a human outside of that and navigate the stuff that comes up for your humans? So that's a big, if that's helpful to hear, it's a big part of what I see that I think maybe some people would see as wrong, because I think a lot of people, well, I don't know. I just think this is normal coaching, but I take a very holistic approach, and I think there's a lot where it's like, how do we compartmentalize this, right? This container is just where I talk about business and business strategy, and this container is where I talk about personal, or I'm supposed to be high vibe all the time, and that's what gets me results. And I kind of think none of the above. I think you don't have to be high vibe all the time. I promise you, you cannot be high vibe and you can be a human having a human experience and still make a fuck ton of money in your business. But I do find knowing how to navigate the human experience and getting support to get to neutral so you can run your business as a CEO is pretty important. It's tough to run your business and make a fuck ton of money if, as a CEO, you're super all over the place and being really reactive and just chasing every shiny object or getting really defensive, right? So I think both of those things are true there. Hopefully that distinction makes sense. But I also think it's really tough if we're just compartmentalizing and saying, hey, I'm going to work with you one-on-one, but only bring me the things that are happening in your business. Don't tell me what's happening outside of your business, because I just think it's all connected. You are still the human who is the CEO who's running the business. And if something is affecting you outside of business and we don't talk about it, and we have a strategy in place, and then you're not showing up to take action, or you're wondering why everything's really funky in your business, there's a good chance it's because of what's going on outside of business that we haven't had a chance to talk through, to process, to unpack, so you can be neutral as a CEO to take that action. So some people might say that's wrong, right? Because you should compartmentalize it. I personally think it's so right, and that's why my clients get the kind of results that don't make sense. Let me know if anyone wants a clarification on that. Hopefully that makes sense there. But I really think that is, maybe that's also helpful to understand in terms of why you don't have to be high vibe all the time to get results, and also why it's important to do the mindset work to be able to get to neutral in terms of how you're showing up to run the business, right? Kim, as the human, I can be having a personal life experience. I don't always want to bring this example in, but I think it's just helpful for context. When I was grieving, when I lost my dad, I was not high vibe, but I had the tools to be able to still show up as a CEO, to run my business from a neutral place, so that I wasn't taking all of that into my business, and also so that I could be supported to work through that outside of the business so that I could run my business and show up. Because of course, otherwise that would impact my business and my results. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's, is there anything else I wanted to share there? Because I have so many notes and I'm just seeing, I don't have any questions, I don't think, but Instagram, feel free to chime in with questions as well as besties and bosses. Okay, what do I want to talk about next? Because there's two pieces here, and well, let's actually go with this piece next, because I think this picks up from what I was just talking about in terms of some of the ways I support my clients might surprise you in terms of what I see really allow my clients to get transformative results. And again, my clients get their own results. I do not get my clients' results. That feels so important to say. I do not get my clients' results. They get themselves results. And I think there are some ways in which I support them and hold space for them and hold a container for them that really supports their ability to be able to get those results. And I think there's a reason that my clients get results that don't make sense, and that we have so many people having 10K months, six-figure years, multi-six-figure years, on track for $1 million, considering the few number of clients I have and turnover we have in this business. And I think the reason I get messages from my clients that also tell me, oh my gosh, not only am I making money, but I feel like a different person, right? My whole life is better. My personal life is better. My relationships are better. I feel more grounded. I feel more regulated. I feel more stable. Excuse me, I had a hiccup there. And I think part of that is because, yes, I'm doing a lot of things that might be, I guess, different. And why I've had clients say, I've never met a coach like you. I've never heard anyone who thinks about business this way or who approaches coaching this way. But I think these are some of the reasons. So what I really know to be true after thousands and thousands of coaching calls is how no one needs to be fixed. This is something, and I don't know if, again, I don't know what traditional coaching programs are teaching at this point. I think this is all just coaching. So I'm always kind of flabbergasted when people say, I've never met a coach like you, or I don't know anyone who has this approach. But I'm just going to share my thoughts here. What I am such a big believer in is that, like, literally no one needs to be fixed. You're not broken. Most of us as humans have trauma with a capital T or lowercase t, and that doesn't mean you're broken. You don't need to be fixed. I really loathe the idea of coaching being a thing where it's like, let's find your problem and let's fix it, because for me, all that implies is that there is something to fix and that our job is always to find a problem to fix. Yes, sometimes there are challenges. Sometimes there are gaps for us to close. Sometimes, as my coach says, we need to find the right problem to solve. Absolutely. And my clients will tell you 90% of the time, I will also challenge them on if what they're bringing to the table is even a problem, or if we're making that a problem, because the brain just loves to look for problems. Your brain is wired to notice -3 to 1 at a minimum. I think if you've had trauma of certain elements, if you've had certain life experiences, it might be even more than that. Your brain, I think, loves and gets so soothed when it can find a problem, because then it's like, oh, I found the thing that I can chew on. And what I have found to be true is, more often than not, that is the thing that gets people in their own way. And if we can learn to minimize the number of problems you are chasing that you think you need to fix and solve, you will feel more empowered, more grounded. You're able to get to neutral. You're able to show up as a CEO. You're able to create much bigger results. I really can't speak to that enough. And I also don't believe, I have so many clients who continue work with me that don't need coaching and don't have problems but benefit so much from it. And what we are doing on calls is not how do we find a problem, it's how do we expand you, what's next, what's exciting, right? How do we get to that next level? And I think that is something, again, I think it's just a different mindset for coaching, which is that we just don't always need to have a fucking problem to solve, and no one needs fixing. Kate says makes perfect sense, and I truly believe it's what coaching is all about. I think it's why you're awesome. I love you. I think it's why you're awesome. I know you are like a coach, and I agree. I think this is what coaching is all about. But I think apparently, because I've heard it from enough people, it's not, I guess, what, like, maybe we just need to have more conversations about what coaching is actually about, instead of like why it's so different. Maybe there's more of us and we just need to have more conversations. Kate says, I also remember you telling me how I could borrow your belief, confidence in me helped me so much. Thank you for saying that. I'm so glad to know that helped. And I think Kate, and you'll have to speak to this if this is true or not, but I think, isn't it just true that all of us need to borrow belief from someone else at some other point in time? Like, the idea that everyone just has the belief when they start something brand new that they've never done before, that's outside their comfort zone, where they don't have the evidence for it, and that they're like 100% and fully in belief, and that's what makes them a good client and coachable, and like that's what is required to create success. It like doesn't even make sense to me, because then we're saying everyone who's ever made big money, anyone who's ever made $1 million, like everyone's just fully been in belief all the time. Like, I don't know, like studying human psychology, knowing how the brain works, I just don't even think that's a thing. And I know I still, 7.5 years into business, multi 6 figures, $1.2 million in total revenue later, I still need to borrow belief sometimes from others. It doesn't mean I don't also need to learn how to have it for myself, but I think it's just I think it's a very unfair expectation. And I think, again, I'm not the coaching police. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole too much here, but I think sometimes this narrative is like something that gets twisted in the, like, I believe in manifesting, like the toxic manifesting world, and or in, I think sometimes in the coaching space, when it's almost like there's a fear that, like, as a coach we're responsible for someone's clients, which, by the way, you're not. But I think then sometimes like the way to like guarantee clients get results and to never feel like you're doing something wrong as a coach is to only have clients who fully believe in themselves and don't have challenges and don't have problems and never have a wobble and never get mad at you. Hey Jess, I just saw your face here. Let me know if this resonates with you as well. So that a little bit on a rant there, but you have to let me know what you think, Kate. There. Okay, let me go on to the next one here because otherwise I will literally rant about all of these things for 4 hours, and I know, I already go long in the live streams. But I do, just to do this, I do think there's something to remembering that so many problems aren't problems. There's a great book called Dissolving the Problem that speaks to this, but so many of the perceived problems all of us have as humans in our human experience, but also as CEOs in our business, aren't actually problems. And I think there is also something as a coach and my philosophy and approach that might be wrong to others is I really believe one of the biggest gifts you can give your clients sometimes is just holding space to witness them, to help them see that not everything is a problem, to help them see they don't need anything to fix, to also normalize that sometimes things are also fucking annoying or frustrating, and that doesn't mean they have a bad mindset. I don't know, I think there's something more annoying sometimes than someone telling you have a bad money mindset or a bad business mindset when in actuality what you're experiencing would just be frustrating for any human. It doesn't mean that we can't reframe it or have a different perspective. But I think it's really challenging to change your perspective and to have a reframe when you can't also just be witnessed and seen in something for the human experience and for the frustration. This is not the best example, but since we use the example of when I was grieving, if someone had told me that when I was grieving that was a bad mindset, I literally would have flipped them the bird and told them to fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think and I think this is just what we do in so many different ways. Excuse my French, but I just can't sometimes. I think the other thing that comes up for me around this as a coach, and maybe what I'm doing wrong, but that I think might be so right for some people and supports my clients to get really great results, is I also just really don't believe in chasing clients down everything they tell me they want to work on. And so this goes a little bit to, of course, I am here to help my client. Like my goal is to help clients get a process and a strategy that works for them in their business, that they can rinse and repeat, that is simple, that they know when they take these exact actions in their business, that we might need to refine, but when they know what to do every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every month, every year, that if they rinse and repeat that, they can create sustainable and reoccurring revenue in their business. That is my goal. And of course, we are working very practically on the strategy, and we are in that way identifying the right gaps to close and problem solving and refining, because we are always refining messaging and marketing. I'm still doing that 7.5 years later in my business. And also industries change, audiences change, freaking algorithms change, right? So all of that is true. New challenges, not problems, but challenges arise in business that we need to address. So all of that is true. And I also don't believe in just chasing clients down every thing they bring to a call. And I think that is maybe a different approach than a lot of what is traditionally taught. I think a lot of, well, I don't know, Kate, you'll have to tell me if this is true or not, but I think a lot of what people think is like good and right coaching is if I am the client, I tell you what we're going to work on, and I bring to our call today that here's the problem in my business, here's the thing I need to do, here's the strategy I want to work on, here's the next step, and help me with this. And yes, and of course, I'm always going to hear a client and what they think they want to work on, and if that makes sense, of course I'm going to support them with that. And I think my job as a coach, and what might be considered wrong, and also I think again why clients get such great results, is to really discern, is this actually the right next step or the right gap to close for this client? Because my job is to hold the bigger vision and what they actually want, and to get to know them and their business and also their patterns and also their fears. And if this is a client, I have a couple clients, but I have one client who comes to mind who always thinks she needs to refine her messaging. And if every call she wanted to refine her messaging, if I was like, yes, let's dig in and refine your messaging, it would feel really great to us. I'm great at messaging, right? We could dig into that and we could chew on messaging for 3 years. But if I know, wait a second, this literally isn't something we need to solve for in your business, your messaging is spot on, and this just happens to be one of the personal things your brain likes to do and to chew on, right? If I know that, I can lovingly give a little pushback. I'm like, is this really the problem? Is this really the thing we need to work on? so that we can focus on what's really going on there. Is there a mindset thing going on, or are we avoiding the next step, or is this just like a well-worn pattern and we need to focus on something else? Similarly, I have some clients who, like, every other week they have a new business idea, a new platform they want to be on, a new strategy, and they're all good ideas. And I think the, like, good traditional coaching approach is like, great, they have a new business offer they want to make, great, they have a new strategy they want to do, let's dig in, let's figure that out, let's work on that. And honestly, my approach is, whoa, let's slow down the brakes here. Is this actually what makes sense for them in their business, or is this just a really great shiny object and distraction? Because my job, again, is to hold their bigger vision, their bigger goal in mind, and to really be clear on what's right and true for them, and to be that voice that challenges them. So I think that is something that is a little bit, what's the word? Different, wrong, that some people might be really frustrated with, but that I think is really supportive to my clients, and one of the reasons my clients keep renewing and work with me for so long, because they know I have one client who literally told me, Kim, the reason I pay you is you're one of the few people I know is always going to tell me the truth and what you think, even the truth I don't want to hear. And so you're one of the few people I trust. And this is a business owner who makes far more money than me. Many of my clients make far more money than me just because of my business model, who makes high multi six figures and renews a year at a time. And this is one of the reasons, because they know they can bring something to the table. And I'm not going to challenge them just to say for the sake of being challenging. Like, I will always be supportive if it's something that makes sense. And I'm always going to ultimately let them decide and hand the power back to my client in terms of what I think is true and right for them. But my vow to my clients is I'm always going to speak the truth. I'm always going to share the perspective that I see from my lens. I don't need to be right. But I'm always going to share my perspective, even if it's not what you want to hear, even if you're momentarily pissed at me, because that's my job, in my opinion. And I do think that is different in what some people might consider wrong. Some people might be like, I just want to work with someone who's going to yes me and help me figure out every idea I bring to the table. I personally think that is one of the quickest ways to sabotage a business and to not make money and to burn a business down, or to not have profit because you're working on 8,000 things and spend over leverage. But I can, each to their own. You choose what you want, and you choose your coaching approach and your, like, who you want to work with. But for me, this is where I think for some people it might be so wrong that I think is really right for my clients. And especially at a higher level, I think just having someone they know is confident enough and is okay enough, because I know if my client's mad at me, they're not actually mad at me. They're not actually frustrated at me. They're just annoyed, or they just want to have a yes. It's not actually about me at all. In fact, I don't think any of my coaching is about me, and I do my best as a human who is still a human, but I do my best to check my personal shit at the door and not to make my coaching about me, and to remember it's always about my client. But with that, I think that is one of the things that's very different in terms of how I'm coaching clients, is I'm very willing to be wrong, but I'm also very willing to not just yes a client and to chase them down anything they're bringing to a call. And I do think that is one of the reasons, for the people that's right for, my clients get really great results. I have a follow-up thought on that, but I need a sip of water because I'm a bit thirsty. Oh, okay. I want to see what Kate said here. Totally true. When you have no experience, evidence, borrowing self-trust and belief supports you to take that messy action, which then builds that self-trust, and so it continues. Knowing your clients and their patterns is absolutely priceless, so you can hold that bigger vision. I think your way makes so much sense. Slow down and work out what's actually important. Thank you for that reflection. I think I just think it's so helpful for people to hear how normal that is, and to also hear, like, all of us have to borrow that at some point. This is like such a side tangent, but I think it's relevant. Y'all know I've been like on a new fitness journey, and I've always worked out and done spinning and running, but I've started lifting more weights because apparently muscle is very important for longevity, and I've never done a lot of weightlifting, and I feel like I have to borrow belief in the weight room, because that's somewhere that's outside my comfort zone. And that doesn't mean that I suck or that I'm broken or that I can never be super strong, but like, of And it doesn't mean that I don't believe in myself or I wouldn't be doing that, or that of course I have some belief or I wouldn't be doing that, but it is also really helpful and it gives me a shortcut to borrow the belief of my husband or to borrow the belief of a trainer, right? It just, I think, shortcuts the growth period. And I'm glad of that. Yes, I think knowing your clients and their patterns, I swear this sounds like a giant long sales pitch, but I just believe this so true. I have told some people who've reached out to me who have coaches that they're happy with, but who are also like curious about my coaching. I was like, if you're happy with your coach, we shouldn't talk about coaching together, because I just believe, yes, I think I'm an excellent coach, and I think I really do think I'm an excellent coach, and I've just gotten better year after year. Like, I think I was a good coach 5 years ago. I think I'm much, like, even better, right? Because I keep doing the same thing. But I think part of what makes me such a good coach is I keep working with the same clients and we keep getting better together. I get to know them and their business better and better and better. And I get to know what's going on with them better and better. And I think that's a big secret behind my clients' big results is, yes, they get their own results. I do not get them. But I think we also just deepen our coaching partnership. And I think that's what you're speaking to, Kate. And I think I think we don't talk enough about that magic and that part. But hey, Jordan, nice to see you on Instagram. I'm trying the Instagram and Facebook toggle live. You're catching the end of this, but chime in if you have any questions. Okay, I totally went off on a tangent though. Let's talk about a couple other things that I do wrong that might be really right for you and that I think is why my clients get really big results. And let me just find, because I totally lost myself in my notes when I got excited to see Jordan on Instagram. Where am I here? Okay, so here's a couple other things here that I think are. I actually want to pick up on this last thought that I was saying in terms of being willing to tell clients what I think and to speak my truth and to not chase clients down like, hey, they're bringing this goal to a call and we're gonna like dive into that. A couple other thoughts come up there in terms of like what's wrong that I think is really right. I think first and foremost, I am also very, very willing to, and again, this kind of goes back to the mentorship hat. I think the traditional coaching hat is we only ask questions, and it's sort of like almost all of it is like left to the client. And I do think there is a lot of power in that, and I'm a business coach. And I do think there's a slight difference and nuance there in terms of, I do think my clients are hiring me to also have some mentorship and to also hear what is working for all of your other clients. You work one-on-one with people. You see behind the scenes of so many businesses. You've been doing this for 7.5 years. You have a decade of experience in marketing and sales before then. Like, what are you seeing? Not just always asking a client to pull out their answers. And I have literally a podcast called One Question. So obviously all about what is true for my client and the personalization and pulling those answers out of them. And I do think there is a time as a coach, particularly as a business coach or as a money coach, or if you're specifically helping people with a certain outcome, I do think there's a time to like do the wrong thing as a coach and to put on your mentorship hat and to share a perspective. And oh, Jordan says hi, catching on for a second. Nice to see you. And I say this because I do really think this is something where someone who really wants like a coach. And I mean, I think I'm like a coach. Like I eat, sleep, breathe coaching and love the craft of coaching. But I do think that is important to speak to because I don't know what coach trainings are teaching nowadays, but I do think a lot of it is more that style or just having coaching like, I don't know, like really specific coaching tools. And I am very much about meeting the person in front of me. We literally make up tools all the time specific to my client, but I'm also very willing to put on the mentorship hat and to say, hey, you get to decide what's true for you, but here's a perspective. Here's what I've seen to be true. Here's what I've seen from my experience. Here's what I've seen work really well. Right? Like, let me share this perspective. And then I'm still always going to say what feels true for you or what comes up for you or like how does that feel to try on for size? I'm still ultimately always going to put it back on my client and let them decide. And with that, again, I am not running my clients' businesses, right? I am here to support and coach what they want to do. And so I might give a perspective. I'm not saying this is right. I have a client who's coming to mind who one of the perspectives we talked through, she really wanted to do something different. And so then my job is to say, great, I've shared this perspective with you. This is my perspective. You want to do something different. I'm not going to fight you on that, right? Like, this is your business. Then I'm here to support you with that. even if that's not necessarily what I would do, that's fine. This isn't my business. I'm here to fully support you with that, even if I don't think it's air quotes the right thing to do. And then we get to see, does that work for you? If so, great. Again, I'm so okay with being wrong. That it's so like wild to me. Like this, like there's it's not even about right or wrong. It's how do we figure out what's right and true for you? But similarly, I'm also here to say, let's try this because that's what you really want and believe. And I'm also okay with, and then if that means it's not exactly what you expected, or we ultimately come back to whatever I thought, I'm not here to be like, oh my gosh, see, I was right. You should have done what I said. Sometimes we need to go down the path that we believe is true for us, even if it's not what our mentor or our coach is advising, so that we can, and I don't even want to call it failure because that's not even the word, but so that we can learn from experience, so that we can know. And sometimes that is just the quickest way forward. And so I reflect that because that is really my philosophy and approach. And I think both the being willing to put on the mentorship hat, but also the willing to be wrong or to let a client run after something that maybe I don't agree with, I think is not necessarily like what a lot of people's approaches are. And I think this is actually what speeds up results, even if it means a client is doing something. I have a client who comes to mind who really wanted to scale before sort of like the ideal time to scale, and created a group program. And my thought, and from my perspective and my experience, I had a different suggestion in terms of what I thought made sense, but that's what she wanted. So I was like, great, fine, we've talked through it. Then I'm also here to jump in with you. And it was wonderful, and she had some success with it. And she ultimately came to, hey, I'm so glad I tried this. And now I can see why you were saying what you said. Let's go back to that idea and let's do that. Right? And I think that while, yes, there was a slight detour, I think that was the best possible detour. I think we sometimes forget because we so want instantaneous $1,000,000 results that the slight detours, or the being willing to try something, or what Kate was saying earlier, being willing to get clarity through action, even if that's not, even if as the coach you think you know the better way, sometimes the detour is the better way because we just can't know better than our own clients. And also sometimes the detour is where someone learns the most, and that's what slow down to speed up is all about, right? That's what speeds up the results long term. So I'm just really willing to go on that journey with clients and to meet them where they're at and to let that all be okay, as opposed to I need you to hurry up and do things my way, or to get results so that I can feel good about myself as a coach, or so that I can brag in my marketing, or so that I can make more through revenue share. Like, that's literally not what it's about, in my opinion, at all. I'm just seeing if there's any. No comments, no questions, but throw them at me if you have them. It was a little ranty, but I feel seriously about it. I think the other thing that comes up for me, I'll speak to two or three last pieces here real quickly, but I know we're hitting time, and I want to go to the gym to my spin class. But with that, I think one of the very traditional tools that I know someone asked me about recently was SMART goals. I'm not hating on SMART goals. I think they have a purpose. I don't want anyone to hear any of this wrong. But in terms of business coaching and in terms of getting results, where results literally take time and most people don't understand the timeline it takes for their results, I'm also really big on throwing out things like SMART goals and really getting clear on understanding the timelines that results take in business, but also understanding if we're playing the long game, your results are inevitable, and our job is to keep showing up for your action steps, for your strategy, to keep seeing what is getting in the way of you showing up as a CEO to get the results you want, because that's what's always going to collapse the timeline. And because I think the problem with timelines is we can both either have unrealistic timelines that and I don't want to say unrealistic, because I mean, look, I've literally had clients get fully booked in 3 months and hit 6 figures. But if that's your timeline and then you don't hit that because you think that's what you're supposed to do, that is also the very thing that I see cause so many people to quit or to stop or to get in their own way or to make themselves wrong, when in actuality they were doing everything right and their results are on the way if they would just stay the path. And so that's, I think, where timelines can be be really funky in so many ways. So I'm just someone who's really just not big on that and making your timeline right and seeing we're so much more about playing the long game and being able to identify how do we speed up results for you without putting all of that pressure on the results. Um, Other thing I'm really not big on as a coach, and this will be maybe the last thing I'll share that I think some people might say is wrong, and like this is the number one thing coaches are supposed to do, that I'm quite honestly kind of like a no to if someone has a call with me and asks about this, but is accountability. I I think I've done a whole live stream and a podcast on this, so I won't go too far down the rabbit hole on this. Yes, there is a time for accountability. And yes, I will absolutely hold my clients accountable, but not in the traditional sense. I really hold my clients to a higher standard. I expect a lot from my clients. I hold my clients accountable to themselves to show up as CEOs in their business and to show up for our coaching. And when clients aren't being accountable to what they say they want to do, I hold them accountable to letting me know so that we can have a coaching conversation around it to find out what's really going on. Because I just don't believe humans are inherently lazy, broken, that they're incapable. I believe everybody is capable, or far, far more than they think, and that everybody is capable of the results they want in their business. It's so cheesy, but I really do believe if you have a vision and a desire, it's put in you for a reason, and that means there's a part of you that knows you're capable of doing that, which means if you're not showing up for the things you say you want, there's something bigger at play. And I always want to find out what that is. Does that mean you don't have clarity? Does that mean we've got a learning curve? Does this mean you like literally don't know the steps you need to take? Does this mean that you're scared? Does this mean that you think you suck? Does this mean that you're triggered by something? Like, what is actually going on for you? So that's the way I like to, like, really what had you not show up for the thing you said you were going to do, is I think a question we had on the podcast before. What had you not show up is the question I would ask a client. And then I would be really curious about knowing that usually the first thing out of anyone's mouth is bullshit, because we lie to ourselves all the time. I do it to myself as well. And then really, what is the actual thing that had you not show up? And then how do we work with that? And how do we work with that instead of me chasing you around saying, did you do that to-do I put for you in Basecamp? Did you do that action step? Did you show up and sell today? Did you put your content out? Right? That to me just makes me the boss in your business and literally defeats the purpose of, it's like, how are you ever going to understand what's really preventing you from showing up and from preventing you from being in your CEO role if I'm essentially being the CEO of your business for you and chasing you around? And that means you're sort of always reliant on me or someone else to chase you around to do the things in your business, as opposed to us solving for and understanding what's going on, what's preventing you from taking this action, from showing up this way, from believing in yourself, right? How do we get you to be accountable to yourself and to build that self-trust? To me, then you don't need me as a coach. And then if we're working together long-term, it's because you want the support, not because you feel like you need the support and are reliant on it. And I think those are two very different things. And that's probably the last thing, just because I have a gazillion things I want to say here. But I think that's really the last piece here in terms of like maybe what I do wrong as a coach that I think helps my client get big results. I don't want my clients to need me as a coach. I think that's so disempowering. I want my clients to work with me because they benefit and they want the support, especially clients who are working long term. I think, yes, there are times in which like maybe we don't need, but I think it's almost like the most beneficial way to shortcut our results. But especially for my long term clients, I don't want clients to feel like if I'm not working with Kim, I'm not going to show up in my business. I need Kim to hold me accountable to post content. I need Kim to know how to run my business. I need coaching support to be able, like that's to me feels so disempowering, as opposed to, I know I just show up differently and better when I'm held to my own power, when I'm held to my own self-trust, when I'm held and I have a space to brainstorm or to bring my shit or to hold myself accountable or to dig into what's actually going on. It feels so good to be supported. This helps me speed up my growth. This helps me get out of my own way. This helps me stay out of my own way. But I think that's such a different mindset to approach coaching from. I know I've worked with I want to hear what Kate says in a second here, but I know I keep renewing with my coach. I've worked with her for 5 years, going on 5.5 years now. And she went on maternity, Lacey side, she went on maternity leave for 3 or 4 months. And I think what was really nice for me to see is I probably will invest in coaching indefinitely. I'm a lifer. I mean, who knows? But for a very long time, but not because I need it. It's not like my business fell apart when we weren't there. It's not like I didn't know how to run my business. It's not like I wasn't okay or I couldn't emotionally regulate. Yes, I think probably the first 6 months or year that I worked with her, that would have been different. I think, you go through different seasons, but at this stage, so much of it is I just know it feels so good to be supported. I know I benefit from coaching. I know it helps me to hold myself accountable. I know there's just so many benefits. It helps me to expand. But I think there's such a different, it's just such a different than dynamic you have in the coaching relationship. And I don't know, maybe that's something I do wrong, but I think it's really right for my clients. Oh, hey Mary, nice to see you there. Kate says, everything you said makes perfect sense. I've loved this conversation, seeing behind the scenes and your thoughts, values, philosophy. So good. Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for being here live and for giving those reflections. I'm so glad they make sense as well, because it's interesting. This is a conversation I was so excited to have, Kate, but I'm sure you can resonate with this as well. It's one of those things too where I mean a little tongue in cheek in terms of what I do wrong, because I obviously believe in this and I feel very confident in my coaching and in my power with my coaching at this stage of the business. And I think there's also something very vulnerable sometimes when we're sharing these things, where there is an element of, I know it's weird to me, this feels so obvious, and so I just know what works for me and my clients. And I think it's vulnerable in that way of like, I realize this isn't necessarily what a lot of people are looking for or a lot of people are selling. So I really appreciate you saying that. And maybe that's also helpful just as a button to close this in and just to normalize. I think the other thing maybe I do wrong, and what I'll share here, is I'm just also so willing to also be a human having a human experience and to say, hey, that felt vulnerable for me. Or to tell a client, hey, I've been there too. Or I've had phases in my business where I felt scared, or where I made things harder than they needed to be, or my income has ebbed and flowed because that's what's normal in business, or whatever, fill in the blank. I think there's something, and again, this might be wrong and not like the right way to coach, but I think for my clients, for people who are a good fit for me, I think it's very normalizing, and I think it helps them to remember that we're all humans in the human experience who are then getting to neutral to be in the CEO role, working with humans who are also in a human experience. I think there's something very normalizing, and I will share personal experiences, both positive, right? What is the experience of making multi-five-figure cash months for years after years at this point, but also what's the experience of, hey, here's the place, like I had a wobble, or here's what was really challenging for me, or like, hey, this happens to me too. And I will share those experiences with clients to normalize. And again, that's not necessarily eliciting responses from clients and always asking questions, but I know from my clients, I also know my clients well enough, I wouldn't do that. I think there are certain clients who maybe wouldn't value those reflections as much, but I know for many of my clients, hearing those normalizations and my being willing to be human and vulnerable and not perfect and not put myself on a pedestal and not pretend that I know everything, I think is actually something that really supports my clients to be in their power, to have confidence, to know they're doing things right, to have things normalize in their business, and to be able to get those big results without putting the pressure on themselves to be perfect or to put themselves on a pedestal or to know everything. Because I think those are sometimes the very things that prevent anyone from getting results. As soon as we have a lot of pressure, or as soon as there's the narrative in your mind, you have to feel perfectly high vibe or do everything perfectly. That's a lot of pressure. That is a really, 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 really challenging place to create results and to sustain results from. Okay. I have like 800 more bullet points here, but we've been chatting for over an hour, y'all. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but happy to do a part 2 if anybody wants to hear more. And if on the replay you have any questions, throw them at me again. I'm not the coaching police. I'm not the end all be all of coaching philosophy. However, I have been in business for 7.5 years. We've made 1.2 million from one-on-one alone. 28 clients have made 10K months, and not that it's all about money, but I think there's something to be said there. And I've been coaching for, I think, about 9 years, because I coached in a year-long coaching program and then for about half a year before I officially opened my business. So I do have some perspective here, and I think, again, just from this conversation, what I would invite anyone is just to try on for size. Like, where are the places, what from this conversation is a place that maybe a philosophy or an approach that might feel really good to try on, or that might feel permission giving for you as either a coach or on the client side to try on, or just for yourself as you're self-coaching in your business. And then discard the rest. You don't have to agree with everything because, like we were saying, like that's not the point. The point is not this is the right way. I think so much of this are here's some different ideas, and then you get to try on what feels true for you. Um, just seeing any other comments. I don't see other comments. I will close this out. Reminder, I do have a one-on-one coaching spot opening up in September. And we have some coaching intensives we are opening up through fall, through the end of the year. So almost every month we usually do allow space for at least a coaching intensive. I don't always have one-on-one spots because so many of my clients renew, or because they're available and someone books them before we get to publicly announce them. But I definitely have one in September I know is opening up, and this one in particular, I mean, I always want to look for right fit, but I just feel like this is such an opportunity to get to connect with more of you and really see who is going to be that right fit client that I get to partner with, ideally long term. You don't have to work with me forever and ever, but that is something I really prefer, and I know really supports my clients to get those big results, is that long-term partnership. So if that is something you're craving, if you listen to my philosophy and my approach, you're like, oh, this sounds like the kind of support I would really crave and like. And if you know you're looking for more of that holistic approach, so I do blend the clarity and the mindset with the strategy and action, and I think I'm equally skilled at finding and closing the right gap if it's some noise in your brain, and making that mindset work simple and normalizing a lot of the human experience, as well as I'm really, really good at the strategy side of things and helping you get clear on a messaging, marketing, sales process that works for you in your business to be able to understand what to show up for to run your business like a business, so you can make reoccurring revenue versus having a hodgepodge of strategies to make one big income month once. I'm really here to support you to have that sustainable reoccurring revenue. I cannot promise overnight results. Again, some of my clients have had results in 3 months. Some of them it's taken them 2 years. Both are the right timelines, right? So much of it depends on so many different factors, but I understand business and what goes into business, and I understand people in the human brain and how to marry those together so that you can have that combo to think and show up like a CEO, to run your business like a business, to set yourself up to make reoccurring revenue in your business. So if that's what you're craving, I would love to connect with you. I will drop a link for a discovery call, as well as we are opening up a couple free coaching sessions. If it feels better to you to experience my coaching to see if we're a fit, I'm happy to do either call. So I'll drop a link for a discovery call, as well as for a 100K CEO mindset and strategy session. If we're not a fit, I know other great coaches. I'd be happy to refer you. But if we are a fit, of course, I'd love to give that one-on-one spot to you. And we'll also, you can also use this if you're more interested in intensive, since we do have a couple of those opening up throughout the fall. So love to connect with you. So appreciate y'all for this conversation and for being open to it. Instagram was really fun to have you here as well, and I'll be back next week with another conversation for y'all. Bye. All right, we're gonna end here.